global hub. One is about adherence to the permissions that are given. I recall a case where a permission was given to a particular operator to do flights for R&D, but he ended up delivering food items using that license, and this particular drone that was delivering the food items was also involved in a mishap. It crashed, and this whole thing came up in the newspapers. Then there was another case where this drone landed on a metro rail track. Again, this was transgression of the permission that was given to it. All these things, what happens is that then there will be a regulatory backlash. There will be a dig-in by the regulatory and the enforcement agencies, and that will only harm the industry. And you can't blame them for that. Once they see all these things happening, they are bound to give a pushback. I did mention about the DJI quality, but I would also hasten to add that that is something that we need to prevent. The DJI drones are somehow infiltrating the Indian markets, although there is a complete ban in the import of drones. Of course, it's the DGFT that has to take action and the customs authorities that have to take action, but it is also incumbent on the industry not to import. Please do not import drones and pass them off as your own. I'm not saying that this is an industry-wide phenomena. I won't dare to do that. There's a lot of good work being done by the industry. But even if it is happening in a small percentage of cases, it brings a bad name to the country, a bad name to the industry itself. And the worst thing is that it is sometimes palmed off to security agencies as indigenous. This creates another aspect of risk because it can be manipulated by somebody else who is having the master control across the borders. So please ensure and help us in trying to prevent the import of drones into the country. Last point that I'd like to mention here is about the data, the information. We need to build up a database of all the dimensions of the drone industry, whether it is manufacturing, whether it's industry, whether it's the operations, because eventually it helps us in planning, and maybe if at all we decide to give in, to have another scheme of incentives or some other financial or schematic intervention, the information base, if it is robust, it helps us in planning and implementation also. I forgot to mention one point about the ease of doing business. There was one demand by the industry that the remote pilot license, or rather the certificate requirement, was conditional upon the person having a passport. We realize that most of the drones are actually used in the rural areas where the person who is going to use it will not even have the passport. So we have taken the necessary permissions, and the permission has been granted that the passport requirement for the RPC shall be removed, and the notification is in the works. It should be out in a week or two. It needs to be vetted and all those processes are on. But there is also a requirement, a demand by the industry that the other aspects of permissions for D2 and D3 forms, where you have the UIN registration and the transfer of the UIN, there also the passport requirement should be done away with. This is a new demand that has come to us. We are working on this, and I'm sure with all your support and best wishes, we will achieve that. I think I'll stop here because it's a time for tea. And before I end, I'll just mention that there is a limit of 400 feet for the drones, for the flight of drones. But the sky is not the limit for the drone industry. So I wish you all the very best. And my compliments to the PhD Chamber for having organized this, and for all of you to be such a patient listener for the entire morning. Thank you very much for having me here.
Very important. Thank you very much, sir. And before I invite Dr. Ajit Mehta, our AD, for vote of thanks, I request Mr. Michael Jan, the co-chair for Civil Aviation Committee, and Dr. Ajit Mehta to kindly felicitate.
Sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Senior Advisor, Ministry of Civil Aviation, Lieutenant General Vinod, in absentia, Mr. Amitabh Kant, G20 Sherpa, President PhD CCI, Mr. Sanjeev Agrawal, Mr. Saket Dalmia, immediate former President of PhD CCI, and all the distinguished people who are present here for this Bharat Drone Manthan 2024. And today I think the vision has been given that India should have at least $10 billion share in this drone market. That comes to around $2 billion from 2025 itself. I think these 5-7 months we should definitely prepare ourselves and we'll make sure that we achieve $2 billion every year starting from 2025 till 2030. That should be a goal, and with the kind of supportive policies that Government of India is having and the kind of requirement that door industry is providing to the industry, I think it's a great opportunity for each and every individual sitting here, the entrepreneurs, the startups, the young entrepreneurs who would like to come in this industry. And on behalf of PhD CCI, I would again like to thank you all, and I hope that you'll have a great session during the day ahead. Thank you, one and all.
category-based platforms, there are limitations to it. So there are companies, who are putting in efforts to understand the aspects, how to improve the efficiency, how to improve the range, how to increase the payload capacity. Because the drone carrying a 5 kg payload in Northeast from one location to another, how much flight it has to do? There is a cost to everything, because India is a cost-sensitive market, and we are not only fighting, we are empowering the ecosystem with a low cost. People are trying to, compare drone logistics with road-based logistics, which is a cost-optimized market. So I think that is one of the biggest challenge we as startup space on ground.
Valid point. Very, very valid point. Thank you, sir. Gaurav, in one liner, your challenges.
So it's great that we have discussed the solutions and now we are closing with the challenges. So I have one concern and one challenge. My concern is that a lot of discussions and a lot of working that we are doing right now is looking at like skill development in a very short term. But I think if AI story is true, probably we will not require the kind of skill development that we are doing right now. If we have a vision for 10 years, 15 years, probably this kind of skill development is essentially not needed. We'll be requiring less number of pilots, more number of people who will be automating the systems at the back end. So a lot of those work will be done by the systems itself. AI will be doing it. On the other hand, I think the serious challenge from my perspective is a mindset that probably all of us need to have. So investors need to have a different mindset, because this is innovation. When they are investing into innovation, commercial viability will not be in real terms.
Time generated.
Yeah. So from the customer's point of view also, they need to think of this innovation. They should be ready to invest into innovation, because this will transform the future. Probably in the near time, in the current present times, it will not see as lucrative as he correctly pointed out versus ground logistics. But if we have future highways, like in the previous panel also, if future highways are created for logistics, then it will be transformative. So having that long-term vision on looking, I think that mindset change in terms of commercial viability, and I think that aspect should.
So, I mean, really, today, from the points which we have discussed and covered so far, a few things emerge very loud and clear. That apart from being a very good drone manufacturer, and apart from having a technology base, there are a plethora of other service platforms which is required for the ecosystem to survive and the ecosystem to deliver. So, on that note, and the reason to have the challenges at the end of the session was to kind of have all of us thinking as we go, and not to kind of just clap around. But yes, it's evolving, it's progressive, but at the same point of time, it needs a lot of collaborative support from every sector to make the things and the platform much more sustainable and growth much more economical for a Viksit Bharat. With that, thank you so much, gentlemen, for being a part of the session, and thank you all for patiently hearing us. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, sir. And thank you for a very interesting session. I think this is the upcoming sector, and we all look forward to more innovations in this sector. So, thank you for putting things in perspective. Can I request Left to introduce Mr. Harbinder Narula? Dr. Ravi Gaur. Mr. Nageshwar Singh. Join us for a group photograph as well. And one last applause for the healthcare sector. Thank you very, very much, sir. Thank you. That brings us back to the last session for the evening before we go on for the valedictory session. Thank you for your patience And this is one of the interesting and the upcoming sectors for the
IIT Delhi, where in terms of skilling, in terms of technology development, we created something required for the drone industry. So IIT Delhi has a Center for Excellence that's called BIRD. It's biologically inspired robotics and drones. And this was started as an interdisciplinary center some time back. A lot of faculty members from electronics, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, applied mechanics, they come together and work on challenges and develop technologies around robotics and drones. So while the center worked not too many on like in terms of like UAVs, but then in terms of drones and robotics, they did develop swarm technologies and multiple other things that can be utilized in a UAV as well. Likewise, recently at our extension campus in Sonipat, we have our iHub for robotics that established drone technology park. So both these centers are primarily helping in terms of also doing research plus skilling of various researchers and students, and also a lot more on the technology and component side so that we can indigenize. So earlier, a lot of people are also, I mean, our drone startups in the early days, they were sourcing components from outside and then assembling those. But now a lot of them are having indigenous capacities to even develop every single component of a drone. And we have startups like Zero Drag who are actually like building those components to supply to a lot of drone startups in the country. So that's the situation. But again, like in terms of challenges, I think we still need to go a long way. And all this R&D actually needs to culminate in a really useful product. So I think that's about it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor, for your initial remarks. Now I would request Mr. Abhijit Sinha, who has got, I would say, a wide exposure in terms of whether various policy level interventions in EV sector. You have worked on various projects with respect to financing, with respect to ease of doing business, not only EV sector, but you are also working on drone sector as well. So I would like to ask you that what challenges you see in terms of capacity building, competence requirements, and how those challenges can be addressed.
थैंक यू शर्मा जी. गुड इवनिंग, आप सबको नमस्कार. ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस का सेशन लास्ट में है, ये 6 महीने के अंदर बदल जाएगा. 6 महीने के अंदर फर्स्ट सेशन ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस. दिस आई एम गिविंग यू एज एन ऑन रिकॉर्ड. व्हाई वी कुड नॉट ब्रिंग commercial angle of electric mobility or any emerging tech is a very crucial question we all need to understand. And for me, I'm here to listen more, speak less, because once we have understood the problem, what I try to understand from beginning is how regulatory, administrative, technical, and other part of regulations work in an emerging tech is a long way to go. But it depends on us how many years you want to waste on it. 16 months, 18 months, 1 year, 2 years. It is good to understand a tech which is called emerging tech, and it is good to develop an evidence-based policy which keeps on changing itself. It does not stand still that okay, एक बार बना दिया तो अगले 10 साल तक नहीं चलेगा. For this, we need to understand our position in the economy, and this is what ease of doing business does for any emerging tech. It's not you who is going to ask. आप सिर्फ जाके ये कहेंगे हमें सब्सिडी चाहिए, हमें रिलैक्सेशन चाहिए, हमें GST में आप कम कर दो. This does not work. Most of the chances this does not work. And live example before you is electric mobility and hydrogen. They keep on asking subsidies and softening of taxations and softening of relaxations. How do you place yourself in front of the overall economy? This is what I wish to spend a minute to explain to you. Is we are an economy which has two very revolutionized stories. One of them is the story of mobile phone. 800 plus million mobile phone we have here in India. And one other story is how we have done the UPI and other thing. So today if you will see somebody talking about Indian economy, he will definitely bring these two. UPI and the revolution that Reliance India Mobile did in the mobile sector, or the telecom which also includes. Look at these two, how these two has happened. A company comes in at its own gives you a mobile phone in 500 rupees at the same time when mobile phone cost was 28,000 rupees. And we never heard mobile phones at that time. And in this new tech, which was not GSM mobile, that you can pull up the SIM, throw SIM out and you can use some other connection. You are bound to take subscription for at least next 2 years. And then the next story of UPI, of course you all know. Both of these has a very factored element of non-believement, or I can say complete ambition of impossibilities. First meeting of $5 trillion economy, I remember in 2016, we were told do not share pictures because it was written there $5 trillion economy. People will mock around you. And the meeting was on what is how this large and very lethargic banking system need to be brought on your phone. And how I am not discounting the contribution of banks into it, but I remember how banks reacted to it that हमें पता नहीं होगा और हमारी दूसरी ब्रांच को पता नहीं होगा और एक आदमी दूसरे आदमी को फोन से 50,000 ट्रांसफर कर देगा. And we will get to know on Monday, and this transaction will happen on Sunday. Or in UPI you can do transfer up to what cost? Up to at least 10 lakh rupees you can do transfer. So this element of impossible ambition is also there in drone. In drone we understand it is unsafe. It is very difficult to adopt or to hire or to lease or to get and hold on it. And third, it is also very difficult to control. It may not work the way you want. And the last but not least, you don't know how it is going to impact on your pocket. It is going to reduce. Then there has to be a defined commercial equivalence placed in front of you. And this commercial equivalence is the need of the hour for the entire economy. The third revolution of decarbonization, mobilization, or you say transport, drone is going to play the most important role. Because if we do not get the bus of our decarbonization rally, which is saying by 2070 India will be 100% decarbonized, the economy which is measured is around $10 trillion. $10 trillion is only the climate economy. I'm not talking about the mainstream economy, which will be around $35 trillion at the other side. And how this has to be achieved is by reducing the cost of logistics from 17% today in our GDP to at least 8 to 9%. Will you be able to do on the hydrogen bikes or electric bikes? No. 93% of our e-commerce delivery is below 3.5 kg. Why we are converting Zomato and Swiggy on a two-wheeler? Why not directly jumping to the drone? So that's the leap, that's the jump which India has to take now or never. If we will not be able to pick this up, we will not be able to bring all stakeholders together to make drone use on the lease, on the pay-per-use as easy as Ola, Uber, or you are taking a YOLO bike, then we will not be able to catch this bus. So I'll save my drone pilot for the other round of conversation. But
very well said, yeah.
I'm sure that
उसने देखा कि एक आदमी गड्ढा खोद रहा था, उसका नाम राम था, और दूसरा लड़का गड्ढा भर रहा था, उसका नाम श्याम था. तो उसने कहा यार तुम क्या कर रहे हो? बोले सर मेरा नाम राम है, मैं गड्ढा खोद रहा हूँ, और इसका नाम श्याम है, गड्ढा भर रहा है. तो यदि गड्ढा खोद के भरना ही है तो भर क्यों रहे हो, खोद ही क्यों रहे हो? तो बोले नहीं सर इस काम के लिए 3 लोग हैं, मैं राम मैं गड्ढा खोद रहा हूँ, ये श्याम गड्ढा भर रहा है, और तीसरा आदमी मोहन है जिसको पेड़ लगाना था, वो आज छुट्टी पे है. तो ये गड्ढा अपना काम कर रहा है और मैं अपना काम कर रहा हूँ. काम दोनों कर रहे हैं, पर उसका आउटपुट कितना आएगा, दैट इज व्हाट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. तो यदि हम ड्रोन की बात करें तो ड्रोन इकोसिस्टम के अंदर पहली बात तो ये है सर कि भारत के 70 साल के इतिहास में इससे बेटर अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं है ये काम को लाने के लिए.
ठीक है.
2021 में जब हमने शुरू किया, हर पॉलिसी 15 दिन से लेके 30 दिन 40 दिन के अंदर आई. नंबर 1 रहा पायलट की बात, तो शुरू में हमें तो पता था नहीं, मैं तो गोइंका पब्लिक स्कूल चलाता हूँ, पर ये पता लगा कि 90% बच्चे जो पढ़ रहे हैं वो काम जो कर रहे हैं वो पढ़ नहीं रहे, और जो पढ़ रहे हैं वो कर नहीं रहे. और उसी समय बात चली एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप की, तो ये भी स्कूल इकोसिस्टम में रह के समझ में आया कि इस दुनिया में जो एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप पढ़ा रहा है वो एंटरप्रेन्योर है नहीं, और जो एंटरप्रेन्योर है वो एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप बढ़ा नहीं रहा है. सो देयर इज अ कंप्लीट मिसमैच. फिर आई ड्रोन की बात. तो ड्रोन में जो कुछ हमने समझा उससे ये समझ में आया कि ड्रोन में खाली 5 दिन का आपने जो लाइसेंस लिया दैट इज नॉट इनफ, बिकॉज इट्स अ फ्लाइंग मशीन. और एक 30 किलो का पेलोड, यदि मैं एग्रीकल्चर ड्रोन की बात करूं तो आदमी सीखता 2 किलो की मशीन पर है और उड़ाता 30 किलो का ड्रोन है. 10 लीटर पानी, 15-17 किलो का वेट, इतनी सारी बैटरी, और मैंने सर अच्छे के हाथ पांव फूलते हुए देखे. तो ये ड्रोन इकोसिस्टम में बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है कि जो ट्रेनिंग, जो स्किलिंग की बात है उसके ऊपर बहुत ध्यान दिया जाए. तो खाली एक ड्रोन पायलट नहीं है, आपने ट्रेनिंग करी, आपने मेंटेनेंस करा, रिपेयर्स करा, उसके बाद में सर्विसिंग करी. और एक सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज है कि चूंकि ये गांव सिस्टम में, यदि एग्रीकल्चर की मैं बात करूं तो ये गांव में ज्यादा काम कर रहा है. तो ड्रोन पायलट का व्यवहार बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. जो ड्रोन दीदी की बात करी सर, तो हम लोगों ने अभी जो पीएम का प्रोग्राम हुआ तो 102 ड्रोन दीदी मेरे पास भोपाल में 5 दिन रही सर. तो जब वो मेरे पास आई तो चूंकि मैं एक वक्ता हूँ, स्पीकिंग मेरा मेन काम है, तो मैंने उनको कहा देखो ड्रोन पायलट तो कोई भी बना देगा, आत्मविश्वास कैसे सीखना है, दैट इज व्हाट आई एम गोइंग टू टीच, टॉक टू देम. एंड बिलीव मी सर, जब वो एक 5 दिन के बाद जब महिलाएं वापस जाने लगी, उनका विश्वास, उनका कॉन्फिडेंस, और जाने से पहले सबकी आंख में पानी था. तो मेरा निवेदन ये है कि जो लोग भी इकोसिस्टम में काम कर रहे हैं, इससे बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं हो सकती सर. एक इंजीनियरिंग का बच्चा 4 साल इंजीनियरिंग पढ़ता है, लाखों रुपए खर्च करता है, और वो 15 से 25 हजार रुपए की नौकरी के लिए धक्के खाता है. आईआईटी के बच्चों को 1.5 करोड़ मिल गया, 2 करोड़ मिल गया, पर मैं चूंकि एजुकेशन बैकग्राउंड से, मुझे समझ में आता है कि कितना मुश्किल है. एक लड़का एमबीए करता है, लाखों रुपए खर्च करता है, शायद 20-25 हजार रुपए की नौकरी पाना मुश्किल है. यदि आप एग्रीकल्चर ड्रोन सेक्टर के अंदर कोई काम आ रहा है, खाली वो पायलट का काम करता है सर, तो 5 से 7 या 10 दिन की ट्रेनिंग करने के बाद में वो आदमी 15,000 या 25,000 रुपए से लेके 50,000 रुपए महीना बहुत अच्छे से कमा सकता है. मुझे लगता है, आधा मिनट और दूंगा सर, और मुझे लगता है कि दुनिया में ड्रोन इकोसिस्टम से बड़ी एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप एक्टिविटी कोई है ही नहीं. एक आदमी ड्रोन ले, उसको 90% पैसा फाइनेंस मिलता है, खाली 6% ब्याज के ऊपर. यदि ड्रोन, 5 बैटरी, ये सारा इकोसिस्टम बना है 10 लाख रुपए का, वो खाली 1 लाख रुपए लगाता है. और सर 1 लाख रुपए लगाकर यदि वो ड्रोन ले और अपने मार्केट में काम करे, तो सर वो महीने के 50,000 रुपए से 80,000 रुपए महीना बहुत अच्छे से कमा सकता है, यदि वो कमाना चाहे तो. और ड्रोन का सर 3 सोशल एंगल है. भारत में 58,000 किसान सांप के काटने से मरते हैं, 4 लाख लोग दवाई के सूंघने से बीमार होते हैं, और हमारा गांव का यूथ इसलिए घर छोड़ता है, अपने पेरेंट्स को छोड़ता है, क्यों मैं शहर जाऊंगा, पैसे कमाऊंगा, माँ बाप की सेवा करूंगा. जब वो कमाने लायक होता है तब वो 40 साल का होता है, जब वो पैसे वापस देने लायक होता है तब वो 45 साल का होता है. तब तक माँ बाप चले जाते हैं, फिर उसको गया जी, गंगा जी, हरिद्वार, ऋषिकेश, बनारस अपने माँ बाप को फोटो के माध्यम से ढूंढता है. तो मुझे लगता है इससे बड़ी मानव सेवा हो नहीं सकती है. एंड आई इनवाइट एवरीवन, वी मैन्युफैक्चर ड्रोन here at Faridabad. We are in this ecosystem for last 3 years, and I'm into this business. How we can serve society and how we can serve environment. हमारा ड्रोन इकोसिस्टम 12 SDG को कवर करता है. Any one of you, sir, we have a system जहाँ बच्चे आ सकते हैं, हमारे यहाँ फ्री ट्रेनिंग ले सकते हैं. We have created a space. जो भी वहाँ आए अपने आकर अपना काम शुरू करें. हम उनको पूरा जो कुछ हमसे सपोर्ट रहेगा, समय का, जगह का, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का, पैसे का, we are going to do that thing, and that is what the small value addition we are doing to the society. Thank you very much.
I suppose.
Thank you. As discussed, my name is Ashish from Association of Robotics and Drone Industries. अब जब हम कहते हैं it is an industries and association, it clearly means we want to create a mesh, a thread, a fabric of people who are actually contributing in this particular industry. So far as the stage is concerned, it is very initial stage, and so far as the global perspective is concerned, India अभी बहुत पीछे है, बहुत पीछे है. अगर हम ग्लोबली देखें, हमारे पास बहुत सारी अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं, बट सिलोज में जब हम ऑपरेट करेंगे, कहीं AI बन रहा है, कहीं पर कंपोनेंट की मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हो रही है, इंडिविजुअली हम सब लोग वो नहीं कर सकते जो हम ये मिल के कर सकते हैं. दिस इज़ व्हाट आई हैव सीन RF इंडस्ट्री, जो RFID बनता था वो ग्रो होती हुई. आई सॉ द ओला उबर इंडस्ट्री, जहाँ पर स्किल डेवलपमेंट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बताया जाता था मुझे हम जब फर्स्ट टाइम सोल्यूशन लेके गए ओला से पहले, मेरू का सिस्टम होता था, कहते थे आशीष जी ये नहीं हो सकता, आप नहीं उम्मीद कर सकते कि एक ड्राइवर एंड्रॉयड पे ऑपरेट करेगा। इस कारण हमारे सॉल्यूशंस रिजेक्ट किए जाते थे सर। उस वक्त ड्राइवर एंड्रॉयड पे आएगा ये तो एक कल्पना से परे था। और जब पहली बार हमने 400 डिवाइसेस लगाए, कई चोरी हुए, कई ड्राइवर लेकर उसमें गाने सुन रहे थे और उन्होंने कहा था देखो ये बिग फेलियर है, ड्राइवर कभी एंड्रॉयड पे नहीं आ सकता, वो भी हिंदुस्तान में जो पढ़ा लिखा नहीं है वो अपना फ़ोन यूज़ करता है। आज वही चीज़ स्किल डेवलपमेंट में बोली जाती है फॉर ड्रोन्स, कि बहुत सारे लोग कैसे ऑपरेट करेंगे। आई नो इट इज़ इक्वली इम्पॉर्टेंट कि जैसे आज पायलट की ट्रेनिंग होती है उसी हिसाब से इसकी होगी, बट आज भी बच्चे ना जॉयस्टिक बड़े अच्छे से चलाते हैं, थोड़ा सा मौका चाहिए, इनिशिएटिव चाहिए, लोग चलाते हैं। अब RFID बिजनेस में एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ देखी गई। RFID एज अ टेक्नोलॉजी कभी भी सक्सीड नहीं किया जब तक उसे प्रोसेस से अलाइन नहीं किया। प्रोसेस से अलाइन करने के लिए मल्टीपल टेक्नोलॉजीज का साथ आना जरूरी था। वहाँ ये बात आती कि एक डिवाइस है, एक सिस्टम है, सेंसिंग होगी, पूरा प्रोसेस बदल जाएगा, कंपनी में कुछ नहीं होगा, चोरी नहीं होगी, ऑटोमेटिक हो जाएगा। नहीं हुआ जब तक कि उसको CRM से, उसको ERP से, उसको बहुत सारे डेटा एनालिटिक्स से जोड़ा नहीं गया और उसके लिए अलाइन करने के लिए प्रोसेस को चेंज नहीं किया गया। आज सारी इंडस्ट्रीज में जब भी हम कोई भी ड्रोन टेक्नोलॉजी बनाएंगे, वी नीड टू थिंक इन टर्म्स ऑफ हाउ इकोसिस्टम इज जनरेटिंग एन इफेक्ट। इट्स लाइक कि आपका सोल्यूशन एक डेंट क्रिएट करना चाहिए ओवरऑल, और वो तब होगा जब मल्टीपल टेक्नोलॉजीज और मल्टीपल टेक्नोलॉजी प्रोवाइडर्स एक साथ इंटीग्रेट करेंगे। आज IIT की बात लो, IIIT लो, कहीं पर भी टेक्नोलॉजीज फाइल्स में रखी हुई है, उनके पास अच्छे एल्गोस डेवलप है। यहाँ पे एक कंपनी सफर कर रही है, उसके पास वो रिसर्च करने के लिए ना भी पैसा है, क्योंकि अभी गवर्नमेंट ऑर्डर मिला नहीं, इन्वेस्टमेंट मिली नहीं, वो करे कहाँ से? हार्डवेयर बनाने के लिए भी उसके पास डाई बनाने के लिए पैसा नहीं है। प्रैक्टिकली एक फैन कहीं से लेके आता है, वो एरोडायनेमिक्स में फिट नहीं होता, किसी के पास नीड है। सो आवर रोल इज टू एनेबल, एम्पावर इंडस्ट्री स्टेक होल्डर्स कि आपके पास जो है, जो अच्छी चीजें हैं, ब्रिंग ऑन टेबल, लेट्स कोऑपरेट, कंट्रीब्यूट ऑन द प्लेटफॉर्म एक दूसरे के लिए, सो दैट वी कैन रियली स्टैंड अप। भारत ड्रोन हब बनने वाला है, ड्रोन कैपिटल बनने वाला है, अगर हम सारी टेक्नोलॉजीज को इंटीग्रेट लेके चलेंगे। सारे टेक्नोलॉजी प्रोवाइडर्स कॉम्पिटिटर बनने के बजाय एक दूसरे को इकोसिस्टम बनना चाहेंगे। जैसे आप सब लोगों को पता है कि चाइना कैसे काम करता है। चाइना में ऑर्डर किसी को मिले, अचानक बाकी लोग जो बिड कर रहे होते हैं वो उसके कंपोनेंट प्रोवाइडर हो जाते हैं। आज भारत सबसे ज्यादा जो सफर कर रहा है वो कंपोनेंट इंडस्ट्री से कर रहा है। जब सेमीकंडक्टर ऑन हो जाएगा रियल में, तो भारत छोटे कंपोनेंट्स जो आपको ड्रोन में चाहिए, अभी फैन की प्रॉब्लम है, मोटर इंडिजिनियस नहीं मिल रही है, सारी प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, बट आप में से कुछ एंटरप्रेन्योर एक दूसरे को सपोर्ट करके छोटे कंपोनेंट्स लाएंगे। और वो कब होगा? जब सारी टेक्नोलॉजीज को इंटीग्रेट हम कर सके। एंड ऑब्वियसली AI विल प्ले द रोल। जिनके पास कोई हार्डवेयर कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है, वो सॉफ्टवेयर कैपेबिलिटीज आपको इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेजेस से मिलेंगी, आपको सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर से मिलेंगी, सब कुछ एक थ्रेड बना के चलेंगे। इट विल बी अ ह्यूज शिफ्ट। अगले 2 साल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है इस इंडस्ट्री के लिए। थैंक यू।
But at least have some partnerships. Again, incubators can help you there. We can have partnerships with certain other incubators in other parts of the world and bring up that benefit to the startups and to the policy and to the government ecosystem. And also, as you mentioned, develop the Make in India competency. As of now, again, particularly in drone sector, a lot of dependency there is in China and all for components. Coming back to that, we should be having self-dependence in that space. And training and education, of course, we are looking at skilling, short-term skilling, or pilot training. But is any particular I would say vertical within the ecosystem, whether the government or non-government, are you looking at developing a course or a content which creates the innovation and intellectual capital in drone sector? I think that is important. Instead of looking just at vocational training, look at that, bringing the education to that level that we are really creating unicorns or very successful innovations or disruptive startups here. I think that was
I suppose other than these pilot training programs, what are the competence which are needed in the drone ecosystem which are not feasible currently?
Thank you. Yeah. So first off, I'll start off with slightly on a positive note in terms of what's happening in our country. When we talk about drones and skilling, I would like to say this is probably, and Dr. Goenka mentioned about entrepreneurship also, so I'll bring that in as well. One of the lowest entry points for someone to be making, he mentioned 20-25K. So if today's eligibility lies at a class 10th pass who's eligible to become a drone pilot, and the class 10th pass after doing a 5-day course and then maybe a 10-day additional training is on the field and making 20-25K, whereas you burn lakhs of rupees on other sophisticated degrees and end up landing at the same pay scale. So I think that opens up avenues for a completely new set of audience, which either was looking at relatively low-lying menial jobs. The way we are seeing this ecosystem maturing, we want to ensure that the drone pilot or a drone operator is looked at as something aspirational. So in the mindset, this person who's in the villages or even outside has to be looked at from a perspective where this person feels pride in being a drone pilot. So there is a mindset change that we're seeing on field now, where this is becoming an aspirational role. Because if people, you can keep creating pilots, but if they don't want to work, then and it does not convert into employment, then these are just skills, just like your digital skills that you get online. This becomes just one more skill. But for this to actually take fruition on ground, it's important that this person ends up, he or she, because it's gender neutral, ends up taking this role as something that's a matter of pride for someone who may not be very sophisticated in terms of background education. So that's the positive side. And the second aspect here, where how we see this, we talked about drone, India becoming the drone capital by 2013. Everybody is touching on indigenization, on how do we ensure that we make world-class drones in India for the rest of the world. But we foresee a phenomenal opportunity coming from creating a bench strength of drone pilots and technicians who will be running shows across the world. Basically, so I'll give you an example. We had certain pilots that got trained at our place. Some of them are now placed at armies of different countries. Some of them are in Japan, doing spray on tea gardens. So imagine if this technology is porous and goes across borders. This skill is not something centered just to India, but it's applicable worldwide. So if there were Wipros and TCS of the world who could create IT behemoths by simply benching IT guys, we foresee that this whole drone force, that could come into play in the next 5 years, will be serving the rest of the world. And thankfully, India is one country from a positioning perspective also is diplomatically, better positioned than many other countries. So the other countries will respond better to us and our people with the trust that we have built with the IT ecosystem also. So we can leverage on that play. Now coming to the challenges, when we talk about RPTO specifically, of course there is one big challenge of the lead times. If you have to think of starting an RPTO today, it will take 4 to 6 months for many reasons, including reasons where there is shortage of manpower at the regulators and they don't have enough sufficient time to cater to opening of new RPTOs, conducting audits of existing RPTOs. So there is of course a resource constraint at the regulators end, and countering that issue is something that's beyond the industry's control, but the ministries are looking at they're taking relevant steps to increase the manpower, especially let's say at the drone director, at DGCA level and at ministry level, to fasten this process to open RPTOs. But simultaneously, it is very important that, so we are foreseeing this as more like we'll see about 200 RPTOs over the next 2 years. And then we'll realize there isn't enough demand for these 200 RPTOs and there isn't enough quality being kept in check. At the same time, there are people who would just probably issue certificates even without the pilot showing up. This used to happen in the flight training organizations, and there were certain scandals also at that point where a commercial pilot, if they had to do 200 hours, they would do 100, and the other 100 would just be documented on a simple logbook. We have started to see these patterns in RPTOs also. So how do you ensure that loss does not happen, where आपने बोल तो दिया कि एक ड्रोन पायलट को 10 घंटे उड़ाना चाहिए पर वो 2 घंटे उड़ाकर वो लाइसेंस पायलट बन गया है, and now is at the risk. So how do you curtail that? So one of the inputs we have given from our end is to start a process of digital logging. Currently all logging of flights happens on manual logbooks, just like the traditional ways, and there is no accountability. So we have gone back to the regulator. Look, our drones are type certified, they're capable of sending you flight logs real time. So why don't you actually track the actual flying hours of a pilot and let's tag them to the relevant pilot. So उससे क्या रहेगा, एक ट्रांसपेरेंसी आ जाएगी. अभी आप जाते हैं, कोर्स करने जाएंगे, थोड़ा उड़ाएंगे, थोड़ा लिखेंगे और बस हो गया और आप पास हो गए. सो एक चैलेंज वहाँ है. और दूसरा, आई वुड ऑल्सो लाइक टू, यू नो, देयर आर मेनी पीपल हु कमेंट कि 5 दिन का ये कोर्स क्यों, और उसमें क्या पायलट बन जाएगा, क्या आप सिखा पाएंगे. एक चीज आई वांट टू क्लैरिफाई, दिस 5-day कोर्स इज एक्चुअली a 40 hours कोर्स, इक्विवेलेंट टू एन इलेक्टिव ऑफ अ कॉलेज जो 3 महीने में पढ़ाया जाता है. तो ऑफ कोर्स कोई रूडिमेंट्री सा आदमी आएगा 10वीं पास, वो शायद 40 घंटे में ये नहीं समझ पाएगा, और हम ये समझते हैं, इसीलिए उन लोगों के लिए हमने 5 का 15 दिन ले गए. बट जो एक ठीक ठाक साइंस बैकग्राउंड से आ रहा है, वो इतना केपेबल है कि आप मैनुअली गाड़ी चलाना सीख गए. अब उसके बाद आप कितने अच्छे पायलट ड्राइवर बनेंगे, दैट विल ओनली डिपेंड ऑन द आवर्स यू बिल्ड आफ्टर यू डन द ट्रेनिंग. सो बिकॉज इट्स एन एक्सपेंसिव अफेयर, कीपिंग अ ड्रोन इन द एयर इज सिमिलर टू एयरक्राफ्ट और एनीथिंग एल्स, और यू vehicle, every time it's moving there is fuel that's getting burnt, right? So it's an expensive proposition. At one side we are talking of curtailing the cost of training, on the other side we want them to gain more flying experience. Unfortunately both of them cannot happen at the same time. And in our scenario, particularly in the drone sector, just like in driving school, this is a one-on-one training. My DGCA certified flying instructor of a 60,000-70,000 rupee, you know, drawing that salary is dedicated to one person at a time only. So unfortunately, there are concerns of reducing the cost, which there are RPTOs who started to do that also. It's going on the commoditization side, but we know they will not be able to survive the run of reducing the cost, keeping their operational cost up. तो वो सब taper off हो जाएगा, ये industry दोबारा थोड़ा सा streamline हो जाएगी. Some quality standardized players will remain, and I mean we know that this is a natural journey for any new tech to come in. तो एक ये challenge address करना जरूरी रहेगा, थोड़ा transparency लाने का. और दूसरा skill set, of course. So our own analysis suggests around every 3 drones, eventually if they're on field, on ground, 3 to 5 drones, you need at least 1 technician in a hyper local environment. So which basically means if you're estimating 600,000 drones over the next 5 years, hitting the hinterland, उसका 1/4 या 1/5 रेशियो भी लेंगे तो मतलब 1.5 से 2 लाख टेक्नीशियन भी चाहिए रहेंगे. तो उतनी मैन पावर टेक्नीशियन की प्रिपेयर भी होनी रहेगी, क्योंकि ड्रोन्स अगर ग्राउंडेड रहेंगे, OEM बैंगलोर में है, आपका ड्रोन पंजाब में उड़ा रहे हैं और आफ्टर सेल सपोर्ट नेटवर्क नहीं है, तो ये टेक्नोलॉजी फेल हो जाएगी. सो इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट.
Dr. Shankar Goenka sir, Mr. Ashish Kumar for bringing in the component manufacturers, and for TV. Sharma sir, for people to, for them to share their knowledge and be with us for the full day. And thank you everyone for your patience. We just have